But first, Seattle's new socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, in the hot seat after a horrific video of a 77-year-old man severely beaten in downtown Seattle goes viral. She's facing heavy scrutiny after freezing the city's expansion of surveillance cameras, the same type of cameras that helped police catch those attackers. Her reason for pausing these surveillance cams? To protect the privacy of immigrants. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno, here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany. And also joining us today, Kennedy, host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, and Josh Ritter, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, Fox News contributor, and co-host of the weekly rap sheet on Fox Nation. Now, we have to warn you, please, the footage we're about to show is incredibly graphic. You can see here that elderly man walking down the street, then being shoved to the ground. The victim was hospitalized for a week, having a broken arm, a broken knee, and many facial injuries. One suspect was arrested and charged with second-degree assault and jailed on the night of the assault. Watch.
You know Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know Katie.
The mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it. That's almost it. That's my last word.
He was released on bail 2 days after his arrest and is now currently wanted on a $200,000 warrant. Officers are actively searching for him. A second suspect was later arrested by police in nearby Redmond. His arrest came after a caller reported that they recognized him from news coverage of the incident. The Redmond, Washington chief of police is touting the use of technology at nabbing their suspects. Mayor Wilson was asked about rolling back these cameras, but her team interrupted.
People in that community who are concerned that there's been rising gun violence and that there should be more surveillance cameras and that kind of thing. That's obviously been an issue that you weighed in on. Does that change it? Does that change your perspective at all?
Let's keep it on. Yeah, let's keep it on the top of this event. Thanks.
But does that change your perspective at all on the issue of surveillance cameras based on what you went through on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Appreciate it, but let's keep it on topic, okay?
I believe that CCTV cameras have an important role to play in our public safety system, and we also have to be very careful to make sure that our data storage, security, sharing practices don't make that system vulnerable to misuse and abuse, whether that's by federal immigration enforcement or by other bad actors.
Josh, the only use and abuse I saw were those two wastes of flesh that attacked an elderly man. And when she talks about who they are trying to protect, I'm not quite sure why protection of her constituents isn't A, a priority, or B, on the agenda, as her staff said.
Yeah, this is untethered progressive politics, but it's also incredibly dangerous for the reason that you just point out. She's talking about trying to protect vulnerable communities. Well, where do you think this crime is taking place? Where do you think they're putting these cameras to try to protect these people? She talks about how it seems she's worried about these cameras exploiting those communities. We have no evidence of that. This is just her argument being made. What we do have evidence of, though, is them solving crimes by use of these cameras. These cameras are not being placed in some sort of quiet residential neighborhood where they're to deal with, and that's why these cameras are so important.
Kennedy, you and I both lived in Seattle for many years, and it personally just...
I used to go to the gym right around the corner from there.
Nice. Did you hang out at McStabby's?
I did. That's how it got the name.
It breaks my heart to see how quickly the downward spiral has occurred and how clearly the vulnerable, the residents there, the elderly, the underserved communities that these talking heads on the city council and the mayors, the succession of mayors, have sort of purported to represent, but anything but is actually protecting them. We have seen horrific crimes. Remember the dog walker that when carjacking got killed under the wheel, she was run over in addition to the dogs in front of all of the neighborhood, but that was a crime of poverty. I mean, it's sickening to see how they treat the crimes there.
Yeah, and that's my problem with her is the why.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with her on the what, and this is one of the few intersections where civil libertarians and progressives kind of agree, and that is keeping the surveillance state in check. And I don't disagree with the notion that we have to have safeguards on things that can exploit people's privacies. And, you know, my worry is if we have surveillance tools, they will be exploited. They'll be exploited by private companies if the government decides to sell information. And, you know, you also have to always question who has access to this information. Those are important things to discuss. But her why is who she's protecting. And that's the problem that I have, you know, coming from the Pacific Northwest, like you, is we have that instead of the citizens who want to open businesses and want to thrive. But places like Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco are quickly becoming ghost towns because of progressive people like her. She's known as a faculty brat because her parents are academics. She has no real world experience. And this is what happens when you have to make tough decisions.
And she's surrounded by, Kaylee, a team that is sort of protecting her from answering those tough or just common sense questions. And I have to note the irony here. We've talked about this a lot on the couch. But for all of the people that have their cell phones that are tracking their every movement and tracking their every purchase, it's so rich to me that all of a sudden the rich people from Bainbridge and the San Juans and Seattle that get to live behind their fences, that are advocating for this, but have no problem getting tracked every hour of every minute of every day on their phone. But somehow the cameras in poor districts are the issue.
That's right. Katie Wilson, the socialist mayor of Seattle. Let's remember her predecessor, Jenny Durkan. Yeah. Jenny Durkan was in Seattle during the so-called and self-described Summer of Love. I remember this vividly. Standing at the podium, you'd look over at Seattle, and they had this CHOP zone, and then they changed the name to the Chaz zone. It was the autonomous zone where people could live their wildest free liberal dreams. Well, what happened was this. A 16-year-old was killed. A 19-year-old was killed. Because guess what? Autonomous zones do not work. Cameras do work, okay? And she knows that full well because she's smart. And I say that because she went to Oxford. She knows facts. She can look at facts and obtain facts. She's choosing to ignore the facts. Cameras work. But this is a trend we are seeing in liberal jurisdictions across the country. She cites privacy as a concern. It made me immediately think about the so-called Stop Nick Shirley Act. What is that all about? It's about not stopping the fraudsters, stopping the journalists who are finding and protecting the citizens. It's about protecting the criminals. This is liberal ideology at its core. The safety of the American citizens, the taxpayer dollars of the American citizens when it pertains to fraud must surrender to the woke ideology. But it is time for voters to stand up and say, no woke ideology. It doesn't work. The facts are there. We categorically dismiss this.
And Harris, may I just point out that that led to a multi-million-dollar settlement by the city paid to that individual, that poor miner's family, because they were derelict in their duty of protecting him and didn't let emergency vehicles through, and 911 calls went unanswered, et cetera, et cetera. So the case study that you laid out resulted in the city having accountability for it. So what's going to happen here? Is the 77-year-old man's family going to sue them, and then, yes, they're going to win, and then they're just going to pay?
If a 77-year-old man out after dark is not in a protected class, how is it that that happens? Okay? I mean, if you're telling me that you wouldn't protect him over whomever the people are on the sidewalk, how is it? And by the way, what cases would we have right now against Luigi Mangione and others? The White House Correspondents' Dinner and all that footage that we have leading up to the crime. Where would we be without cameras? We're thankful for those. And by the way, police officers with their cams on them, their body cams, the squad cars, all of that. We have pretty much agreed as a public, both sides of the political aisle, that we're willing to spend our tax dollars, as you pointed out, Kaylee, to making the rest of us safe so we can capture some of that. Did she ever say illegal immigrants? Like, who is she trying to protect here? She just said the immigrant community. Which immigrant community is under threat? Because the last I checked, those in Minnesota that were really, really pressing were American citizens. I mean, those protesters were really pressing because some of them were committing crimes that were violent. So I just don't understand what side she's on. I want to know more information about that. But those taxpayers deserve a refund. Not to mention the fact that that's one of the highest tax states in America right now. Bob Ferguson, the governor, wants what Mamdani wants, 9.9% tax, income tax raise on that. I mean, it's crazy. It really is. What are they paying for? But if she can do that with tape, when else has she done it? Right. Can we see receipts on other crimes?
Top headlines. U.S.-Iran peace talks. President Trump announced that a potential deal to end the conflict could be reached within a week. Reports suggest a memorandum of understanding is being reviewed by Tehran that would involve lifting the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Economic impact. Gold and silver prices surged, exceeding $4,700 an ounce for gold, as markets reacted to the possibility of a ceasefire and shifting inflation expectations from the Federal Reserve. Texas legislative tension. Governor Greg Abbott has issued an ultimatum to a local city regarding an Islamic event held at a public facility, fueling a debate over state policy and religious gatherings. Campus unrest. Continued confrontations at Cornell University have been described by the student president as unprecedented.